Hey, it's Clay Trader, and this will be a video chart on the S&P 500 index. I did this one not too long ago, so if you go back and dig through my videos, you'll see it. And I want to get this updated for two reasons. First, just to kind of brag about technical analysis and how it does work, and how charting is worth at least keeping an eye on. And second, just to kind of update the situation, since the S&P is one of the bigger markets that you always see on the news and stuff like that. So it's worth just keeping our eye on and tracking what's going on. All these lines you see are what I drew on the chart last time I did this video. And once again, if you don't believe me and think I just drew these in, all you have to do is pull back up my old video and you will see that I drew these lines in a few days ago. And as I mentioned in my previous video, I said, we're either going to separate ourselves from this trend line, or we're going to get knocked back down a little bit since we are at this resistance. And clearly, these 2 days here knocked us back down. But surprise, surprise, look right where we came down and are now bouncing off of this green line, which once again I did not draw in here. If you go back and watch the other video, you'll see I drew that in there a few days ago. But just the power of charts, we came down and found some nice support right at this area where you would have expected it, because it was a little previous high here. So for players that are short term, I'm sure they were shorting up here around this area as they got knocked down, and then were looking to cover some. And if they did, they made a nice little trade. For longer term people, the trend is still up. There's nothing to panic about. It's good to see that this level is holding strong, because if this one falls, then there is a very real possibility that we may come down here and test that level. But for the time being, the bulls are holding strong up here at this important support, and we'll see what happens. But overall, good to see the last 2 days have been green. This was a pretty nasty day. Reminded me of the days back 5 or 6 months ago when down 200, down 300, down 175 was no big deal because it seemed like it was happening every day. But the last 2 days have made up for it, and now we've made back, well, almost made back all our losses. I guess if you zoom in there, you can see that we haven't quite closed up there, but close enough. So what I want to do on this one is pull up the weekly and kind of show what's going on with that. You can see that, get this out of here, you can see we have kind of a little hump thing here where we came up, and now pulling back, and this is the chart, or excuse me, this is the support line on the daily chart where we may pull back to, and which is still possible, because if you look at the weekly, we are kind of reversing a little bit here. We could bounce back up here, but overall, even if we did come down here and test this level, that wouldn't be bad at all, considering the weekly chart would give it a little bit more of a cool down, which is always healthy in the overall scope of things. So that's what we're looking at now. And hopping back to the daily, this line here was the one on the weekly chart where I said we still may pull back to. So don't be surprised if we see maybe another green day and then some red days that carry us down here, maybe bounce up, and then hopefully come down here, and then this will be our area where the price finally stabilizes and then heads back up. On the daily chart, that may be kind of annoying, but once again on the weekly chart, pulling back here to this line and then heading back up, that looked pretty darn healthy for this chart. So patience, as the saying goes, a virtue. So if we do need to pull back a little bit more, then so be it. Looking at the 60-minute, so let me pull this up. You can see that once again coming back right to this area here, and it bounced off it extremely nicely. What I really like about the 60 is this thing looks like a rocket ship. This is the 200 period simple moving average, really just blasting upwards, which is a good overall context for the trend to show us that despite this sideways action and having gotten knocked down, the price is still in an overall uptrend, as can be demonstrated and shown by this moving average. The one new resistance I'd like to draw in for the short-term players out there is just this resistance line right here. So I'll make this kind of a goofy color. But there we go. That is our short-term resistance. And keep in mind, this is the 60-minute chart, so this is a shorter-term one. For long-term investors, you really don't care what this chart has to say. But for day traders and swing traders, hopefully they utilize this chart in their analysis. But this is going to be our key level now, this trend line, to get above on the 60-minute, which will then hopefully in turn create bullishness on the daily and then weekly and so forth. So got to start someplace, so we'll monitor the 60-minute chart also. Overall though, chart is acting pretty much as I had stated I figured it would. If you also remember, I mentioned the negative divergence, which was signaling running out of gas when the price was up here. So it has pulled back here now, and that's the other thing. I knew I wanted to draw one other trend line, but let's keep our eyes on this downtrend. If we do push upwards, what we want to see is a break of this trend line, or else we're still going to be in a negative divergence situation, which is not what we want. So on any sort of price increase here, we'll want to make sure that we can get above this trend line on this RSI to kind of just break out of that negative divergence thing and not have to worry about that anymore either. So that wraps up this chart on the S&P 500. Please shoot me any questions if you have them. I'd also encourage you to go and check out bullmarketnewsletter.net, and if you sign up for my newsletter, you will get a free ebook, and with that there's some tips and tricks and strategies that can be used within the market, and then you also get free articles, free chart setups, free fundamental plays, and so forth, along with trading ideas, which we've been having some good success at. Last one made about 87.5%, so we've been doing well on that side of the ball too. But if anything, it is all free, no strings attached, so it's worth checking out. Once again, this was the S&P 500, and hopefully the support level holds, but if not, looks like we'll be taking a little trip down here, which overall isn't a bad thing, as the weekly chart showed. Thank you for listening.